It tells us what sort of quarry it's eligible for. So if I took along the lines of, for instance, a general calibre that a lot of us use is a 243. It tells us what the muzzle energy is. Vermin, ground game and others, it's not really suitable for that. It's more for deer and other large quarry. Yeah? We go down to heavier calibers here, and that's suitable more for dangerous game. Okay? But we can get to the situation where we can have a larger caliber which would not be suitable for deer because it doesn't reach the velocity, muzzle velocity, which is required for deer. So it's not perfect. It's going to go under the microscope again, I believe, and they're going to be changing this yet once again. Okay.
Anybody tell me what deer that's of? What? Sika deer. Okay. Right, so apart from the obvious size difference, which is not always apparent, depending on the night, have a look at the formation of the antlers. The red deer, the top tines are coming out the back, and the branches slope back away. The Sika deer has a forward leaning head with the main tines at the front throwing forwards. Quite easy to spot. V-shaped brow, it does say thumbprints, but sometimes you can actually get them in another deer. I don't know who put that in the picture, wasn't me. But V-shaped brow, smaller shaped head. Let's see if you can guess what that one is. So I had a guess. Right, here we go. Stripe running full length of the body with no break in it. Long tail, slightly wispy at the end. The other one, you can't really see it too well, but we do know it's got a large flat tail, flashes white when alarmed, almost beaver-like. And the last two, no antlers at all, canine tusks, and the one on the right hand side, nice set of antlers and a white rump patch.
It isn't a hazard, but a loaded rifle is. So it would be discharging your firearm, that's when it becomes a hazard. A knife in a sheath potentially isn't a hazard, but when you're using the knife, the sharp blade is a hazard. So it's a bit trivial in some ways, but defining exactly what the hazard is
So you could say walkers through your stalking area could be considered a hazard.
Well, I would put that as they would be at the risk, yeah. The hazard is the discharging of the firearm. The risk could be members of the public, staff, whoever. If you were to put members of the public as the hazard, the only way I would put them as a hazard would be if it was confrontations. If you're in a rough area place, and how you're going to make sure that those controls are adhered to. That's the 4 key ones that we went over. So now you've seen it in this this layout. Time period covered. Generally, we do a 6-month time period for a job risk assessment. Location, job, so deer stalking, who's covered, the hazards, etc. Should be a complete example. Yeah. Here's one, carcass extraction, for example, 6-month period, it's in date. In our district, carcass extraction, who's covered, and this is the hazards I've identified, manure handling, lone work, Lyme's disease, if there's prevalent ticks in the area, that sort of covers it. And it's an active document. I've got the grading there, medium or high. Yeah, so you can see it's active. We used to use a capstan winch, we don't use it anymore. So I've just postponed that just now because we'll start using it again. So that's an example. There is a second page to that because carcass extraction is a big part of our job. Hence, we've got about 10 hazards there that we identify as being the main. That gives you an example of that. Now, if you're a contractor for the Forestry Commission, you might be given an outline risk assessment. Now, an outline looks like this. So this is when I gave a fencing company outline risk assessment. I identified the hazards. I said, look, this is what you're going to come across. This is what you should do. They have to fill in this the far away column, implementation and monitoring. So they need to tell me how they're going to look after these controls. This is how we do contracts and how, strictly speaking, we should be doing permissions or leases. Generally what we've been doing with permissions and leases is we'll come up with both parties with an agreed risk assessment. So that's when we'll basically do the risk assessment with you, we both sign it and we're both happy. To almost every other contract, the fencing or chainsaw work, we'll give them this and they do more. But we'll sort of help you out if you go for tenders with us at that stage to make sure that we get it right. There's the second half of the one above, so it's got details of the local hospitals, medical centres. It just shows you an example of what we deal with when we deal with contractors doing work on our ground.
The better the habitat, better nutrition, the larger the antler. Now what we like typically for a red that we think of is 3 times with a crown at the top, and that's what we call a royal. Right? And I think 14 points is an emperor, is it? Anybody help me out on that one? I've never shot one that big. Yeah. When it starts getting beyond those things, I don't know what they call them, just monsters.
Expensive.
Expensive, that's right. But don't think typically every single red deer will look like this, because it doesn't. Yeah? When we take a look at deer, stags in particular, you can have them when they're born and they start to produce their first antlers, they're going to look like this. Okay, now that's a seeker. So that, you can see, is considerably different to the head that Davey showed you earlier on, which was down here. Okay, so that is a mature animal, top of the chain, the big master, yeah, compared to your little thing like that. And interesting to know that, of course, you can differentiate these. And that one there is a seeker, and that one there is a fallow. Yeah. And you can see it from the cornets there. The Americans tend to refer to them as racks. We refer to them as a head. But you can see that there is again, terminology within the antlers itself. You've got what I was already telling you about with the pedicle. Use this lovely head here. Right, so you have your pedicle, the pedicle and your cornet. So the pedicle tends to be this part here where it goes on. There's your cornet, and then you start to get into your tines. Right, so you've got your brow point or brow tine, tray tine, no, that's your tray tine, that's your bay tine. This is what we call our beam. We can have things, these lines here tend to be called as guttering. When we're looking at things like roe deer, we have purling, which you don't really refer to in the red here as such. And then at the top we have our cup. And on a perfect one it's 3 points. Yeah?
Time in the deer world, it's gone down the voluntary uptake route at the moment, which basically means you're not being forced to demonstrate your ability if you want to go shoot a deer in Scotland. Currently, there is legislation in place which came into effect in 1st of January last year, which basically allows government to review competence. That will happen formally in a year's time. Between now and then, there's a kind of working group made up of all the organisations, whether welfare ones, sporting ones, government ones. In plain English, the bottom line is basically trying to encourage people voluntarily to build on their skill set. At the moment, it would appear that DMQ level 1 is the agreed bench in terms of competence. The uptake of that's pretty good from the sort of recreational stalking side. It's a bit more tricky in the kind of agricultural farming side. There's lots of organisations out there doing training. I think you can do DMQ through, whether it's one of the colleges, whether it's BDS or BASC. So I think the message from me, there's no harm in doing it now. At the moment, you're not forced to do it. Who knows what will happen in the future? The reality is, I think there's a general consensus that at some point there probably will be an expectation to have some formal accreditation in terms of competence. If you want to shoot deer in National Forest Estate, then they require that, would be up to level 2 now, I think. or one and then striving for level 2. So yeah, the bottom line is it's not a bad thing to have if you enjoy shooting deer. If you want to do it as a job or do it for fun, level 1's a good start for that. You can read this, you might read it and think, what's all that about, how does that apply to me? It applies to everyone really who manages deer, but perhaps more so on those that own land. But it kind of tries to outline some of the responsibilities that people now have, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a local authority, whether you're a forestry company, in terms of deer, what you should be doing with your deer, what you should be thinking about with your deer. I think it's helpful for everyone to start to get their heads around that and see where they fit into that complex mix of deer and people and land and all the buzzwords of today in terms of sustainable deer management and all the rest of it. So, again, you can read that, it's on our websites. And yeah, that's probably all I have to say. Enjoy today. Get something out of it. Every day's a school day, I think. So.
No, it's good. It's the black.
Didn't hear the crack off the board.
That's good. Good shot. I don't get the bullets from States, I get reload components like bullets, the actual bullets themselves, not the ammunition. It's good to get the actual bullets at the right point. Oh. When you squeeze the trigger, it'll go click. There's no bullet in it, it's just to give you a feel of the trigger. Easy, do you want to do another one? You see, you got the feel of the trigger. Good stuff. So what we'll do is, we'll have a shot. Okay, so once you close that bolt, it'll be ready to fire, okay? So if you close the bolt, you're ready to go. Here we go. Bad news, lads. That's better than most of you. Well done. That's a good shot. Have another shot on the same target. So it's ready to go bang. Uh-oh.
No.
That's good.
Good stuff.
Same target. targets up. Utilise my rifle on the ground, tie the cordage onto the rifle and pull the rifle up. I don't have a problem then with safety. Try to get in there, the rifle catches on the rifle stays on the top, etc. Gets in the way and it's clank, 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 you've got a problem. With this, they're quite sound, they make a wee bit of noise getting into them, but over and above that they're okay. You know? Getting into the thing, just like a normal ladder, up onto the top, hold on to the back here, swivel your backside into it, and that's you. You've got this, lower the rifle rail up and down to what you want. It gives you the various angles if you're shooting uphill, shooting downhill. Undo the screws at the side, push it up and down, and that's you. Getting a rifle into it, what I tend to use is I tend to use a bigger bit of rope for this. Put the rope over the side to the ground, which allows me, after I've got it all together, come back down the seat after it's tied on. Make sure the rifle get no magazine and no rounds in it. So if it does fall at all, it can't go off with the pressure of the firing pin coming forward onto a round. No fancy knots because it's got to come back out at the top. Tie it on so it's sound and then it'll not fall off. It's a lot of money to lose. No noise at all. That way there's, you know, clank, clank, clank. I'm a tank, you know, making one hellish racket. Take that off, set it up, and you can just set this in below your arm. From there, you've got all this in front of you, your binos out, and just enjoy thereafter. If you find the beasts are coming out lower than where you look, you can always shoot in below it, you know. But just drop your weapon through and shoot for you. Up above it, whatever. You'll see people, they'll set the weapon here in front of them, or they'll set the weapon in below their arm, here like that. You know, it just depends on your own preference for it. Weapon up, weapon down, make sure it's unloaded. Again, put a weapon down, onto the ground, and that's you. You've got nothing to worry about, nothing that's going to catch you or throw you out the high seat. You know, the aim's to get up and down safely, not to go up and down in bits, or to fall off halfway down because a rifle's caught in a rung or it catches up here. It's entirely up to yourself what kind of keys you put it on. These things will go onto just about anything. You know, that doesn't really give you a problem of what it goes onto. As long as you've not got a big bow coming across the top of your skull here, you know, your head's going to be forward all the time. Type of high seat that we use is a tree creeper, which is a totally different thing altogether.
With oil, dog hairs, bits and pieces, big pieces of plastic trays, everything for it. Something to put the deer into, to keep it away from contamination from inside the deer. Notifiable diseases, quickly through that as well. There's 4 main notifiable diseases: bovine TB, chronic wasting disease, foot and mouth disease, and blue tongue. The bovine TB, there has been a few, there's only been a few actually recorded in the UK. I don't think there's been any recorded chronic wasting disease, foot and mouth, or
That's off an S8 of all things. But I got used to it before because obviously it's just like you can slip it off really quickly. The advantage I like is when you see the deer, you can just unslip like one thing, and because it fits